Hello and welcome everybody to today's Academy session, SDG Ambition, Your Questions Answered. My name is Pia Haslauer. I'm a coordinator for leadership initiatives at the UN Global Compact, and I have the pleasure of being your host today. So this session is part of a series, part of an Academy series on SDG Ambition, which is the UN Global Compact's new initiative that aims to challenge and support companies in first setting ambitious corporate goals and targets to address some of these, some of the world's most pressing challenges, and then second, to accelerate the integration of those same goals and targets into core business processes. So the first two Academy sessions, one took place at the end of July, and the other one took place during our Uniting Business Life events just last month at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. And we were super thrilled by the level of interest and attention that the two sessions received. And I think, in fact, they were one of the most well-attended and viewed how-to sessions in the Academy session, in the Academy scheme ever. So, the presentations and discussion in the first two sessions focused on that urgent need for ambition to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the new expectations for corporate goal setting and business integration systems that then come with that. And so in the first two sessions, we presented the SDG Ambition Benchmarks that represent that, line in the sand against which we're calling on all companies to align their sustainability targets with. And we heard directly from companies and experts on the value and benefits of setting these ambitious goals, and also some of the challenges that they faced in that regard. So I very much encourage everybody who missed these two sessions to go back right now. Well, not right now, because you're watching this, but maybe right after you're watching this, or whenever you have time to go back and watch these sessions. Because they really provide some important context and framing for the discussions that we will be having today. So, while the last two sessions were very much focused on the content of SDG Ambition and the deliverables of the program, this session is all about the more practical aspects of the SDG Ambition Accelerator, which you will hear about more about in just a minute. Before that, a couple of housekeeping rules. For the whole session, as the title suggests, we will be answering your questions about SDG Ambition. And that means we very much rely on you to submit any questions you might have in the chat function. So we invite you to submit any questions you might have at any point through the chat function, and we are looking forward to answering as many as we can. So with that, let's go through the agenda for today. So I'm delighted to be joined by Ole Lund Hansen, who is our Chief of Global Operations at the Global Compact, and he's going to help me answer some of your questions. So as you can see from this agenda overview, we will be starting with a brief overview of the SDG Ambition Accelerator, and then we will cover some of the most frequently asked questions that we normally receive from participating companies or companies that are interested in participating in the SDG Ambition program. For example, the difference between the global and local track, who can participate in the workshops, the time commitment, which countries are running the program, and questions such as that. And then we will move into the Q&A session, where we'll be answering, your questions. And as I said, we very much look forward to answering as many as we can. And then at the very end, I will share, some next steps, provide some information on how to join the SDG Ambition Accelerator, and to join us on this journey to raise ambition and deepen integration of SDGs into business operations everywhere. So without further ado, over to you, Ole, to give us a brief overview of the SDG Ambition Accelerator.
Thank you so much, Pia. And Yes, very happy to be here. As Pia said, my name is Ole Hansen. I am Chief of Global Operations at the UN Global Compact. That most importantly means that I have the great pleasure to be working very closely with the 69 local networks that we have all around the world. And I want to make sure to flag up front, of course, that the local networks are very central also to SDG Ambition, really providing the opportunity for companies in every region essentially to be able to join this initiative. Also wanted to mention our partner organizations. So we're working on SDG Ambition closely together with Accenture, with SAP, and with 3M, who bring a strong commitment and lots of expertise to the initiative. Now, this should be a very brief introduction, so we can focus on the Q&A. But it is important, of course, to understand why this initiative is being rolled out right at this moment. And I think this quote from the UN Secretary General sets the stage quite well, because even before the pandemic broke out earlier this year, all indications, all data and reports pointed to the fact that the world was not on track to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Now, the pandemic and the vast socioeconomic consequences that we're seeing all around the world has obviously impeded progress even further and set the world back several years, maybe even decades, in delivering on poverty eradication and many of the other goals. So what is clear from this quote and what is really the background for the initiative is that we need a whole new level of ambition from every type of organization, essentially, to be able to drive real action and real progress at the necessary level for 2030. And that applies as much to business as to anyone else. In the UN Global Compact, that's obviously our focus. And we do see also in our own reports and in our own work that companies are doing really wonderful things. But when you add it all up, it does not suffice, again, to deliver progress at the scale that we need. So for SDG Ambition, the aim is really to challenge and support, as Pia said, companies to drive greater ambitions in their work. And practically speaking, this means at least two things. One is for companies to set goals and targets for their own organizations that are at par with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the second part is really about how you better integrate that into your own organization. So, so this slide, I think, gives an overview of what are some of the benefits to the participating companies and what are some of the concrete outcomes that we hope to drive and that we hope companies will experience as a result of participating in the program. One first key element is a question that I think many companies continue to ask themselves, namely, what's the best approach towards prioritizing among kind of the Sustainable Development Goals. And in the UN Global Compact, we're promoting what we call a principle-based approach to the Sustainable Development Goals. And in this program, you'll see how to apply that to your own company in terms of selecting priorities within the Sustainable Development Goals that both speak to where your company potentially has a negative impact, where there are risks, but also at the same time priorities where your company can make a very positive contribution and hopefully see great business opportunities as well. So that's really the foundation, of course, for any company to be able to do something very strategic and meaningful is that the set of priorities speak to the specific of your own company. The second part is then really focused on one of the dimensions of ambition that I was speaking about. And Pia already talked about some of the materials that has been released from within SDG Ambition, including these SDG Ambition Benchmarks. So the second learning opportunity really for this program is to see how can you within your company set goals and targets that align with these benchmarks and that therefore are, you could say, on the right side of this line in the sand. Again, many questions that companies continue to ask themselves is really, what is ambitious enough? How far do we need to go to do our share? And these benchmarks really are meant to deliver at least a partial answer to that question. And then finally, again, something that has been discussed within the UN Global Compact and related organizations for many years, but how do you really drive a stronger integration of sustainability into your business? And this is again also where we benefit a lot from the partnership that we have for this initiative. And the focus is really on, again, supporting companies in understanding how can we better integrate the progress, the activities to make progress on the SDGs into our core business, and how do we use our existing mainstream business systems, business processes to manage and to monitor progress. So those are the three kind of key opportunities to work on and learn within, and they're all meant to really enable the company to drive concrete outcomes from this program as outlined on the right, so that after participating you hopefully have been able to apply these learnings to your own organization and make progress in terms of what your own goals and targets should look like, how you can drive integration for your specific company, and you know, combining all of that into a plan of action. If we look just at the program itself, a quick overview. It's a 6-month program, essentially kicking off in January next year. So the opportunity is right now, hence the timing of this Q&A session, to sign up to participate. Then for the coming 2-3 months, there will be virtual onboarding where we make sure that every participant is more or less on the same page in terms of understanding the SDGs, their relevance to business, current progress and challenges, an opportunity to meet the other companies that will also be participating in the program, and then that 6-month program kicks off right into the new year. The key components of the program follows what we've outlined already in terms of understanding the necessary level of ambition, how to prioritize, you know, how to set goals or revisit the goals that you've already set against the benchmarks, against that necessary level of ambition. And then the last component, the last couple of components focused really on the integration, how you manage progress on this as you would manage any other business priority within your company. I think, Pia, that's all we wanted to cover for an overview, but I think there were some questions submitted in advance, but back to you, Pia.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Ole. Maybe one important thing to mention is that the sign-up deadline is November 16th. So, you know, this is, as Ole mentioned, the timing of this Q&A session is very timely. You do have a little bit of more time to sign up, but, you know, the sign-up deadline is coming up. Yeah, thanks so much, Ole. So this leads us to our first question. So, you know, if a company already has sustainable sustainability goals, why should they participate in the Accelerator, Ole?
Yeah, well, I think, at least from my understanding and experience, setting goals and targets for your company is not like a one-off exercise. The goals and targets, they continue to evolve every couple of years or more. Different types of companies set new goals and raise their ambitions. But even if a company has quite recently been setting sustainability goals, I think there are two good reasons to still participate. One is, of course, the opportunity to review those goals and scrutinize the goals that has been set for your organization in light of these benchmarks and in light of an understanding of what is really required from the individual business to be able to comfortably say we're doing our part. The second thing is, of course, setting the goal and the target is only the first step. So even if you think your goals and targets might be either as great as they can be within the current business environment or not set to change anytime soon, there's clearly a lot of work in front of everyone tasked with the responsibility of leading this work to manage the delivery of these goals and to manage the integration of sustainability across the organization, so that, again, delivering on the goals, meeting the goals for your company becomes, of course, the everyday responsibility of people and teams across the business. So that is obviously, as we've now talked about, a very important component of this program, and something that should be especially relevant, you could say, for companies that have set ambitious goals and now need to deliver on them.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Ole. And I think, I always like to reference that one stat from our last progress report, that around 80% of our participating companies, are indicating that they're already doing work on the SDGs. But as you mentioned before, it's just not at the right level of ambition yet to make actual progress on the SDGs. So, even if companies already have sustainability goals in place, this program is really to challenge if those sustainability goals are at the right levels of ambition that we need. So maybe now let's include the opposite question. If a company is just getting started in their journey of making progress on the SDGs, and thus currently not have any corporate targets in place to advance the SDGs, can they still participate, Ole?
I think that's even easier to answer, of course, because I think the program, I know the program has been established right around those different steps that for many businesses are involved in, again, understanding the SDGs, defining priorities, setting goals and targets with the different steps involved in that. So it should be an opportunity, of course, to learn from that, general experience around goal setting, and then to meet many other companies and hear from them in terms of how they've gone about doing this. So I hope and I think it'll be a great learning experience for companies that are new to setting goals and targets. And I would say, again, learning from companies that have been doing this for years, that setting goals and targets is really an essential practice, right, for companies that want to be professional, that want to be ambitious about sustainability. Similar to how most businesses will set goals and targets for sales, productivity, the key traditional business metrics, to be able to have your organization focused on a set of sustainability priorities and you really deliver in an orchestrated way. Goals and targets can really help an organization do that in a much more focused manner.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Ole. And, also thank you so much for so clearly articulating that, given the urgent nature of the SDGs, that this program is really applicable to to all companies, no matter where they are on their sustainability journey, as we like to say. Thanks so much, everybody, for submitting your questions. I love that so many questions are coming in. We'll have a lot of time at the end to answer all of your questions. I see a couple of people raise their hands. Since it is a little complicated in a webinar to unmute people, I suggest everybody just comment in the chat function or in the Q&A function and type up their questions, and that way it's going to be a little bit easier. So this leads us to the next question, and the next section of our agenda, which is the global and local track. And a lot of companies have a lot of questions on, there's a local track, there's a global track, what is the difference of the different tracks? And I'm very happy to clarify this once and for all. So first, we do have the in-country track, which is available in 29 countries where networks are running the in-country track. It is facilitated in the local language and local time zone by our local networks, as Ole already mentioned. And the in-country track will offer a series of live and on-demand sessions, a little bit more hands-on support, more interactive workshops, and that kind of peer-to-peer networking, because you will be grouped with companies in your own country. So participants from the in-country track will get access to the global track sessions as well as the in-country sessions. So kind of, best of both worlds. But since we didn't want any companies in countries where the networks are not currently running the program to miss out, we created that global track, which will be facilitated in English, and it will offer the very same curriculum content as the in-country track, delivered through global live and on-demand sessions. So this global track will be available in all the countries where there's currently not a network running the program. So one of the questions that obviously goes hand in hand with that, which local networks are currently running the SDG Ambition program in 2021? And so you can see a list of the 29 networks that I mentioned here. These networks are running the program in 2021. But as I said before, don't fret if your country is not on this list, because you can still participate in the global track of the program if you are comfortable and speak English, that is. But since you're joining the session, I'm assuming you're probably great in English. So yeah, I hope this clarifies some of the questions on the global and local tracks. Yeah, this leads us to the next agenda item, which is all around the participation in those workshops in the Accelerator program. So Ole, who from a company should participate in these workshops?
Yes, and I think, yeah, exactly. We prepared a little bit for that question as well with this slide. So again, given the two main dimensions of the program, we believe companies will benefit the most from participating in this program if they're represented by, if the actual participation is by individuals who are leading those two respective efforts. However, they're framed and constructed within the individual company. So one representative, we believe, should clearly be very involved, ideally a decision maker related to how the company prioritizes different sustainability challenges and opportunities over others, and that are involved in the process or will be involved in setting goals and targets for the company. So someone who maybe leads or is involved in the sustainability practice of the company, if there is such one, or when things maybe are more integrated with the business strategy, someone working in business strategy who will be well positioned to define and be part of deciding on future sustainability priorities and goals. The other one, again, should be someone who's then well positioned to take the learnings and the inspiration from the program and apply it to how the company is basically set up with its IT systems, its kind of daily processes in terms of managing, in terms of what we were talking about, in terms of managing that integration, so that hopefully the company can start a journey through which progress on these goals and targets is monitored through those same system, data collected through those same ongoing systems, as with any other kind of business priority. So that would be someone working again within that architecture of IT and system design for large companies, or someone again in a smaller company who's generally involved or leading kind of in a more operational manner. And then, of course, the workshops themselves are not designed for CEO participation throughout these months. There'll be opportunities towards the end of the program, and we have the Leader Summit in 2021, hopefully for the UN Global Compact, where we would like to invite, of course, more high-level representation. But we do believe it's quite important, if this program is to translate into, concrete actions within the participating companies, that, at the very high level in the company, ideally from the CEO, there is an awareness of the program and a commitment to drive greater ambitions, so that possibly as a champion, the CEO or some other C-suite officer will be identified to really oversee the company's participation in the program and be, on deck to kind of help solve some of the challenges that we occur.
Great. And so one other question that I normally get a lot is, especially if it's a smaller company, if the CEO is interested in, running these workshops or participating in these workshops and interested in being one of the representatives, that is obviously, very, very fine with us. Yeah, and then one other question on my little slide here that just appeared that we get a lot is, can we have more than 2 representatives that participate in these workshops? And unfortunately, the answer to that is no, because we do have, hundreds of companies that will participate in the program, and all of these will have 2 representatives, and to get them all on the learning platform is already a tech feat as it is. So if all companies would request 3 representatives, that would be, a lot more in scope than anticipated. So capacity is really strictly limited to 2 representatives that Ole mentioned per company. But you will be very much supported in engaging colleagues across all functions and implementing, the SDG Ambition approach, because as we mentioned, one of the core components of this program is really integrating the SDGs within core business operations through engaging these relevant business units and teams and colleagues. So one more, and just a quick reminder, if unfortunately we cannot unmute you, so please, if you raise your hand, if you have a question, just please submit it through the chat function. So one more, pre-prepared question that we always get very, very frequently is, what's the time commitment for the type of work that is required for companies to complete as part of the program? Oops, sorry. So while it is a little bit hard to anticipate the actual time commitment for, the type of work that is required for some of the activities, such as, actually going back with the content that you've learned and setting these company-specific targets and milestones, or, involving the relevant colleagues, et cetera. But with that being said, we do estimate that going through the Accelerator on-demand sessions and workshops is going to take a total of 24 hours for the whole program, which is 4 hours per month for the 6 months of the Accelerator program. So we hope that this is going to give you a better understanding of the kind of commitment that's involved in joining this program. Ola, do you have anything to add? Nope. Okay, great. So then let's go. I see so many questions coming in through the chat function. Thanks so much. Maybe let's start with this one. What is the correlation with the SDG Action Manager? So how is the SDG Ambition Program related to the Action Manager? Ola, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I think we're definitely going to be also encouraging all the companies that participate in the program to use the Action Manager as part of that onboarding phase. So we believe the Action Manager is really a great tool for a company to understand the current status of its work, to identify challenges, also new opportunities. So it really provides an opportunity, of course, based on a self-assessment, but an opportunity to understand your current status, future opportunities, and really take the temperature on how you're currently set up to deliver on the SDGs, also how that compares to other companies in your industry and in your environment. So we believe that, again, it does take time, and it's a great tool, and to get the outcomes, it does require time investment. So it's not like a requirement or so on, but we believe companies will be greatly benefit greatly from doing so in the beginning of the program. And then, of course, the program here, SDG Ambition, is meant to build on top of that. So understanding your current status, challenges, and opportunities, SDG Ambition should, again, challenge and support you in thinking about future priorities, future goals and targets, and how you make progress.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Ole. And then we have another question about, I don't quite understand the systems integration representative. What are they trying to achieve for this program?
Yeah, no, it's difficult to, I'll see if I can explain it slightly better. But of course, what this looks like in companies is quite different, of course, from whether you're running a major multinational organization or a smaller company. But what we're talking about here are the architecture that the company has set up, whether small or large, to manage its data, its information systems, to really monitor and manage performance, both, of course, as a human resource perspective, but also operationally. So again, SAP is a partner to this program, so this obviously applies to companies that are running SAP, and how can you better integrate sustainability into the design and functioning of that. But it applies equally to companies that are using any kind of other solution or software, or typically a mix of them. What we're seeing nowadays is that most companies still manage data related to their sustainability progress quite separate. They collect maybe data on a more irregular basis, manage that data, try and understand how they're doing in terms of progress, quite separately from how they manage lots of other data and their day-to-day operations. So here we're talking really about people or an individual who is, hopefully deeply involved and has a responsibility within the company pertaining to the existing systems architecture. So again, whether the company is running SAP or any other solution, someone who's involved or leading the effort to really optimize the company in terms of its system software, in terms of the processes related to, again, depends on the industry, of course, but even related to factories, to operations, etc. The point is really, again, that if a company commits to a set of sustainability targets, there will be, of course, clear KPIs associated with them. And to be able to do this effectively and professionally, it's of course important that that data related to those KPIs is managed in exactly the same way as you would do to any other data related to the operation. So to make sure that it's fully integrated and it not kind of continues to run on the side, the idea here is to involve someone from the organization who is, as I said, involved in designing and running that whole performance management system.
Yeah, and maybe just to add here, we know that we get questions about this all the time, and we know it's not as straightforward as as it sounds, that systems integration person. So as part of the onboarding, you will hear a lot more about the program and about, you will get a team identification guide, and we'll explain exactly, who should be participating in these workshops and in order for you to derive the best value from these workshops. So there is a little bit of flexibility as part of the onboarding to still change your representatives if you realize another person from your team might be better suited to run through these workshops.
I think that's exactly the point. I mean, I think it's hard for us to define exactly what that person looks like in a very uniform way. I would say if my company participating in this program, I'd look at the intention, the objective here, which is really about bringing sustainability to the core and manage and monitor in a way that's fully mainstream, right? So whoever within your company has an associated responsibility could be brought in to help make sure that the processes, the policies, the data related to delivering on these sustainability priorities is fully integrated. Who that person is or what that team looks like within your company is probably what it takes to be able to understanding that, and it might be quite different, right, from organization to organization.
Great, thanks so much, Ole. Jen, we have another question here. Is there any cost to the program? And the answer is, in some networks, they might charge a small cost covering fee. For now, that is in Brazil and UK, but it is really just a small fee to cover the cost of running and facilitating the program. But we do want this program free of charge in as many countries as possible in order to achieve that kind of scale, which is very much, an objective at the very outset of SDG Ambition. Then we have another question. Can you explain a bit more about the number of sessions, time per session, the process during the session, if they're interactive or one way? Maybe I'll start off with that, and then Ole can add, whatever you want to add. But yeah, happy to explain a little bit more about how these workshops are going to work. So it is, as mentioned, a combination between on-demand and live workshop sessions. These on-demand sessions will be global, so there will be the same sessions for everybody, but they will be translated in Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian. So they will be on demand for companies to engage with in their own time. And then for every on-demand session, we'll have a live, more workshop kind of session that really then engages with the content that will then be delivered by the local networks in the case of the in-country track, and by the global partners in case of the global track. So it is very much a combination of that on-demand, one-way, and interactive workshop sessions. And we envision for each of the modules to have, for each month to have one on-demand and one interactive session, and then the practical activities in between, because obviously this program is not only about just watching sessions and going through workshops, but actually taking the content and then doing the work yourself within your own company, and then, you know, as an outcome, hopefully setting those targets and goals that are aligned with the benchmarks. Does that cover it, Ole? Great. Then we have another question. There's so many sustainability initiatives and frameworks, the UNGC, UNPRI, TCFD, GRI, for institutional investors. Would the UNPRI be more appropriate for the adoption compared with the UNGC? Ole, do you want to take that?
Yes, I can try. I mean, I definitely can speak to the value and importance of joining all the many different ones, but I'm happy to talk about you know, the relationship between the Global Compact and the Principles for Responsible Investment, UNPRI. So which is what we call a sister initiative of the UN Global Compact and grew out of the Global Compact now many years ago. But I would definitely say that the short version would be that as an institutional investor, we definitely strongly recommend that you sign up to PRI and engage actively there. And there's lots of exciting work happening that relates specifically, of course, to the investment portfolios, investment practices of those signatories. For many institutional investors, it also makes sense to be part of the Global Compact in addition to PRI. Here I'd say the focus would then be more around kind of your internal organizational practices, but also, of course, joining the UN Global Compact and some of our programs, even as an asset owner, is then also an opportunity, of course, to understand what's going on with businesses, with corporations. That, of course, is relevant insight and information for your investment practices. So I think it could be, and I know a lot of institutional investors are joining too, the both of them, but clearly PRI is the initiative that really speaks to the core business, so to say, in terms of investments practices and portfolios. There are many other great initiatives out there. I think it's really very much something that depends on your own situation, the challenges you have, the interests, how many and which additional ones to also be actively involved with.
Yeah, and I think maybe one more point to clarify also the connection with GRI. I think one important thing to note is that this initiative is very much not a reporting initiative. We're not trying to come up with any new reporting standards, because we know the reporting landscape in the sustainability space is already very crowded. So this program is very much about tracking and managing and setting your goals internally, which we do realize obviously has is connected with the external reporting, but we're definitely not through this program trying to reinvent the wheel and reinvent a new reporting requirement. And then we do have one question that we actually got a couple of times. Do you have any recommendations to get internal support to join this initiative and that internal buy-in in a company that continues heavily relying on economic considerations for every decision, even though the company joined the UN Global Compact?
Yeah, I think that's the million-dollar question, of course, and speaks to the continuous discussion, of course, around the business case and the case in general for sustainability. I think for SDG Ambition, of course, I mean this aligns with participation in the UN Global Compact overall. Of course, trying to challenge and support companies to set even higher ambitions. And I think we at the Global Compact all firmly believe, and we know a lot of companies firmly believe, that the companies that do move first in terms of setting higher ambitions, they're much better positioned to manage risks and to drive progress in the future, and that there are so many dimensions to this that it's hard to cover in this particular webinar. I personally always think that pointing to concrete examples from within your industry of peers who have moved or are moving in this direction can be very compelling for maybe managers that are still skeptical as to whether this is worthwhile the investment, pointing to how competition is changing. But it's again it's hard to answer in general. Yeah.
Then we have another question. For which companies is this accelerator most useful with regards to size, sector, progress on sustainability, etc.?
Is that for me as well? Yeah.
I mean, I could. Yes, that's for you.
So again, we're experimenting with this program. I think generally we believe, and the partners believe, that setting goals and targets is something that really should be or can be beneficial to any size of company, any company within whatever industry. And again, the urge and the need to drive sustainability at the core of the business rather than at the periphery, I think also equally applies to essentially any kind of business. So that's, I think, a very broad answer. But again, we are looking at this from the perspective of the UN Global Compact and the UN, and the idea here is really to make more ambitious to make greater ambitions kind of the mainstream, right? We need all companies if we are to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal and the goals and tackle the challenges that we're currently facing. So it's really hard to say why should one industry not be involved in that, or why would you, if you're a smaller company or a larger company, not also benefit from managing sustainability in a more professional and ambitious way. So I think it applies to everyone equally. Of course, there are some that have more of a burning platform in terms of ongoing challenges. There are others that see the business opportunities even more clearly than others. But in terms of how the program is designed, we're trying our best to make it useful and valuable to any kind of business organization.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think that's a great answer, and I think hand in hand with that question, we got another question if this program is applicable to SMEs as well. And I think we touched upon this a little bit at the beginning of the session, but given the urgent nature of the SDGs, we believe it's very much is applicable to everybody. And SMEs obviously do have a little bit of a different context than many of the large multinationals, but they very much should seek to adapt the guidance and approach of SDG Ambition to understand their own context, and still pursuing that kind of granular approach for SDG impact as possible. And in doing this, and then sometimes, when we talk about SMEs, a lot of these benchmarks are actually going to be easier for SMEs to achieve than for multinationals. When we think about 1.5, the 1.5 degree goal, for example, that is definitely easier for a smaller company to achieve than a very, very large multinational with operations in many different countries and offices in many different countries. And also one thing to consider, which could be a great opportunity for SMEs in joining this program, is the business integration guidance. It can be very critical for successful ecosystem partnerships among companies of all sizes. So when the data flows that are required for that kind of end-to-end visibility on the SDG Ambition benchmarks depend very much on SMEs integrating, them with their software solutions that are operated by that kind of end of value chain partner. So definitely great opportunities when you think about ecosystem partnerships there. And then we do have another question here. I'm wondering about how consultancy companies can support, go through that program and then support their own client companies. And maybe Ole, you can add to that as well. But we know, for example, Accenture, who is a partner in this program, is going to go through the program themselves. So this very much is applicable to consultancies as well. And also we, we do, want consultancies to take this kind of content and spread it as widely as possible, obviously, because that's one of the objectives of this Global Impact Initiative. Dear Ole and Pia, is there a short information convincing kit of the SDG Ambition Accelerator that we can present to a company's board and CEO and urge them to join the program? Yes, we definitely do have a kind of pitching slide deck that we can share. It is an overview slide deck of SDG Ambition, which we can share with participants after the call, together with the slides from this call here. Then we have another question maybe for Ole. How many SDGs would you recommend, SDG goals would you recommend to come up with? Understand that it depends on the business scope, but would you say it's too little, or are 7 too many goals? Can you recommend an appropriate number?
No, I'm not in a position to, I think, do that convincingly. Again, like with many of these things, I think it really depends on the individual company to a very large extent. I think, again, what the program will feature is, of course, insights into what we call the principle-based approach to priority setting. So it very much supports, right, that if you do everything, if you prioritize everything, then you essentially don't prioritize anything. So some level of prioritization needs to happen in order to really drive focus and progress in the areas that matter the most. What's important to those of us who advocate the principle-based approach is that those priorities cannot alone be defined by where the company is doing great or has the potential to deliver positive outcomes and can see business opportunities. Priority also needs to be given to areas where the company has a negative impact, especially where it may be impacting vulnerable groups, where it may be, involved with or supporting activities that are really impeding to sustainable development. So I don't know what that ends up with. You do see companies that have a clear sense of priority in, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4 areas that are clearly the priority, but they still have a broader scope of goals because there are other areas that are important to drive progress in. So I think that resulting framework can look quite differently. But what is important is, of course, that the priorities are grounded in the impact that the company has, as well as risks and opportunities, and that the level of ambition is set at the right place to really meet, to also not have to continue to negotiate internally and externally how ambitious do we need to be. Again, that's one of the claims of this program, is to help companies really understand what is ambitious enough. How far do we need to go to say that we are doing our fair share in managing this issue? So no clear answer, unfortunately. I'm sure there'll be lots of great discussions with companies in the program about this exact point.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks so much, Ole. And then we have, I'm looking at the time and I know we're quickly running out of time, but we do have two important questions that we're still asked. Who can sign up, signatories and participants? And yes, the eligibility criteria is that if you're part of the Global Compact as a participant or signatory, you can sign up for the program. You have to be a member or engaged in a Global Compact network in order to participate in the in-country track. And then obviously you do have, you need to be willing to represent, sign up these two representatives plus the SDG Ambition champion, that high-level champion that we mentioned. And then one other really important question here is, if the mother company already registered, could the subsidiary take part separately? This is a great question, which we get a lot also, which we are kind of, answering on a case-by-case basis, because companies do operate so differently. In some cases, subsidiaries almost operate as their own entities. So in that case, if it makes sense for a company to, set goals and targets at the local level and integrate them, very much encourage that. But as much as this can then feed up into global goal setting as well for the whole company, the better. And in some cases, this might not make sense, because it might be very centrally organized and very much, the global aspect is maybe a little bit more important for that company. So then in that case, it might make sense only for, the global headquarter company to participate in the program.
Maybe just to add that for those that are subsidiaries located in a different country from that of the mother company, then we encourage very, very strongly that you sign up or join up with the local network that we hopefully have in that particular country, and then there might then be the opportunity to participate also in this program through them, but definitely also in the many activities that local networks offer. So we see a lot of subsidiaries getting value from that, understanding also how to apply the sustainability priorities of the company to that local context, and deal with and work with companies in that geography on local challenges and opportunities. So that's not related to this program exclusively, but generally just encouraging subsidiaries to sign up to the networks and engage actively there. And then again, there might be that opportunity to join this program as a subsidiary through the local network as well.
Great. So in the interest of time, I'm going to, take one last question. And this might be for you, Ole, because it is a little bit of a tough question, but we do like tough questions. Thanks, Marcel. So he's saying one of the highest value added aspects of the SDG Ambition Initiative is the identification of 10 KPIs that should receive priority in being addressed. Who identified these, KPIs and benchmarks? Question of legitimacy. And how can they be amended?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Marcel. I personally agree. This is something it's really valuable for the Global Compact to help outline for companies really what are some of those baseline actions that really should be taken by all companies, and then on top of that build bigger aspirations in particular areas. So the current set, and I can say very much they will be an evolution. I think they will continue to evolve together with our work across human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. So the current set has been derived by the programs team in the UN Global Compact office, but really based all and everyone from existing resources across the different issue areas that I mentioned. but really a first attempt to try and bring them all together and consolidate them into this set of baseline actions. They are currently being reviewed also in the context of our COP review, so they will evolve, I think, even within the next year in the context of that, but also I think more broadly, as I said, as best practices within companies continue to evolve, so should our guidance and recommendations as well. So for you and for everyone else, there will be, of course, an opportunity. We welcome very much, even right now, suggestions and comments to that initial set.
Great, thank you so much, Ole. And in the interest of time, I know we're already running 1 minute over, but just very quickly, what's next? So we really hope that now, you in the audience will join us through this SDG Ambition Accelerator. We obviously hope to encourage thousands of companies around the world to really step up their commitment, and as we always say, turn commitment into action, to align with these SDG Ambition benchmarks. So you can see the website here on the screen. Please go to our website, unglobalcompact.org/SDG Ambition. Only if it's in all lower caps, the link is going to work. So all caps is not going to work, I just realized today. So yeah, you can visit that link to sign up today. And, we really hope that if your company is ready to raise its ambition, you can, go to our website, sign up. And as I mentioned, the sign up deadline is November 16th. So we really hope you are going to join us in moving beyond the incremental progress towards the transformational progress that we need in order to achieve sustainable development goals. Thanks so much, Ole, for joining me, and thanks so much, everybody.